Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's message of hope. So, how are you all feeling this week so far? Are any of you feeling somewhat out of control with all this pandemic stuff going on? I know that I am. Rabbi Brian Mayer, on his website rotb.org, wrote an interesting article entitled A Sense of Control. I like Brian's stuff, and you ought to visit his site for yourself and take a look. Logically speaking, I know that I'm not in control of very much, at least not on a grand scale, like in terms of a universe. But I do like being in control of my own life, or at least think that I am. I like having things go my way. I like to anticipate things in advance so as to control how they might impact me. I plan a lot and probably won't stop. But that reminds me of a certain Hebrew proverb. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. So as much as I may enjoy being in control, or at least pretending that I am, faith tells me that it is a much higher power than me who is in control. And you know what? There's something tremendously freeing in all that. As Rabbi Mayer puts it, freedom is the sublime knowledge that I'm not in charge of the universe. Still, the more out of control I feel, the more I try to micromanage my life. And of course, the lives of those close to me. Ask Susan. It's awful. A team of psychologists once conducted an experiment with human beings and their perception of control. They put one test subject in front of a set of levers that weren't attached to anything at all. And the subject could see that they weren't. Then they put a second test subject in front of the same set of levers, but didn't let him or her know that the levers weren't attached to anything. A drawn curtain blocked the second subject from seeing whatever might exist behind the levers. The tester then told each subject that the levers, if they were adjusted correctly, could cancel the loud noise that they were about to hear. Of course, the subject ones mostly mocked the psychologists. They knew that the levers, unconnected as they were, would have no effect on controlling the noise. But after the mocking was finished, loud noises were then played at the same volume for both subjects. Each subject was then asked about their experience and was given a simple cognitive test. Now, just to let you know, each test subject in reality had the exact same setup. The levers for both subjects were non-functional. However, one subject believed he or she had control over their environment. For all the subject twos, the noise was canceled whenever a lever was pulled. The result? The subject twos, the ones with perceived control, found the experiment to be less annoying and did better on the cognitive tests. And the subject twos, all of them seemed more content with the situation as a whole. The Greek philosopher Epictetus, he wrote this: happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within your control and some things are not. Now, fundamentally, we all know this to be true, don't we? Let's face it, there are things we can control, like what we choose to eat for breakfast. But there are so many things we cannot control in our lives, like all the big things, like political corruption and indifference, like racism and religious intolerance, like COVID-19. These things and so many others were not of my choosing, and for the most part lay well outside my control. While I can do my best to change or control the circumstances around me, in reality, all I can really do is try to minimize the harmful effects these big things might have on me. And here's another thought. As Wayne Dyer claims, you cannot always control what goes on outside, but you can always control what goes on inside. In other words, while we don't have control over all that happens to us from the outside, we do have control over how we react to it. But that's not true, is it? We can't always control what goes on inside of us or how we react to things. We all know that things happen that trigger us. For example, my dogs like to growl and snarl at each other. But even when I know it is play fighting, my blood sometimes begins to boil. And I end up yelling at the dogs to stop the racket, to stop the loud noise. While I can't keep them from play fighting, nor can I seemingly keep my blood from boiling, of course I can choose to leave the room. In other words, I can control my exit, but not my initial trigger. That's outside my control. So that's it. The quest for control versus the freedom we can enjoy knowing that we're not in complete control. The ability to continue the struggle to change bad to good, inequality to justice, disease to health, while knowing we really don't have the final say. In the end, you see, we have two choices. Take refuge in the inspiring knowledge that we're not in charge of very much in the universe, or take pleasure in that freedom. Or we can find a set of levers to pull, to pretend that we are. Friends, I urge you to opt for the freedom and place some of your hope in that wisdom. So that's it for this week. Be well, everyone. Stay safe and keep the faith. Shalom.